Welcome back, guys. I'm Laura. I'm a hairstylist, and today we're going to be testing the theory of washing hair in hot water versus cold water, and that the hot water is going to fade your color quicker, as well as bleeding more into blonde hair or highlights than when washed with cool water. Now, typically when you wash your hair in hot water, it's more likely to fade much quicker because you're blasting that cuticle wide open with the heat, which is going to cause more color molecules to slip out of the hair. When you use cold water, it doesn't open the cuticle quite as much, so not as much of the color molecules should come out. This is similar to how steam will open your pores if you really want to scrub and exfoliate your skin. But we're going to put these theories to the test to see how much of a difference it really makes, or if this is just a myth that's spread around the hair world. All right, so I have pre-colored these swatches with the Gem Lights Deep Copper Brown color conditioner. Now, I did color these like 3 times just so the color was really embedded in there. If you watched my video where I did this color on my mannequin, it did not take this dark, but it's only because I applied it 1 time. So I thought that a red shade was going to be a really good experiment to try this with, because this color fades very quickly and we want to try to avoid that. So we want to see if the cold water makes a difference or not. Now, I have these previously colored swatches that we are going to leave as our control. These are the ones we're going to be testing with, and we're going to wash a blonde swatch with each of these swatches, and this will allow us to see how much the color will bleed when washed with hot water versus cold water, if that makes a difference or not. Now, these swatches are pre-made. I bought these online. This is supposed to be human hair, but they are very smooth and very healthy. These swatches I made from hair that I cut off of a client. Now, these are also pre-lightened, but they're not quite as healthy because these were like the ends of somebody's hair. So these ones, the cuticle is likely opened a little bit more than on these ones, which is why I'm doing the experiment on both pre-store-bought swatches as well as actual human hair swatches. All right, so the shampoo that I'm using today is Paul Mitchell's Tea Tree Shampoo. I'm using the Color Protect one. It is sulfate free, so that in itself should help a little bit the color from fading too much. And I'm starting with the cold water swatches, and I want you to pay attention here to the suds in the shampoo. This is something to be aware of when you're washing your hair. If you are seeing a lot of color in the suds, it is likely fading your color more. So this is just something to be aware of and to keep in mind, especially if you have blonde highlights, because that blonde is going to pick up some of that color. All right, and I'm now moving on to the hot water. Now, this is not going to replicate the shower exactly, because there's not going to be the steam from the bathroom, from the shower, but we are still going to wash it in as hot of water as my fingers can handle. So it's going to be a similar effect. Now, again, let's pay attention to the suds of the shampoo, and in the hot water, they definitely did pick up a little bit more of that color than the cold water did. This means it's a lot more likely that the blonde will pick up some of that copper tone. Now, if you're interested in some extra tips on how to make your color last a little bit longer, aside from the temperature of your water, check out this video linked above. I give you 7 different ways to extend the longevity of your hair color. So let's go ahead and review the results. So we'll start with the store-bought swatches. And this swatch is the cold, this one's the hot, and this is our control. So we did not wash this one at all. And obviously it is much darker than the 2. We can see that both swatches faded. There's no lie about that. But if we are comparing these 2, the warmer swatch, I can say, does look a little bit lighter than the cold water swatch. Now, keep in mind, this is just only 1 shampoo that we did. So over time, the hot water swatch probably would fade a bit quicker than the cold water, but it's not a massive difference from one shampoo, so I'm gonna let you guys be the judge on that. Now let's move on over to the blonde swatches. This is what we started with, which was a ashy cool blonde tone. And the hot water swatch, I can say it looks like it picked up a little bit more of a pink, and the cold water swatch, it's a little bit more yellow, but looking at them side by side, neither of them stayed their ashy tone. Granted, if we had used purple shampoo, that may have helped. I would say that the hot water swatch definitely picked up a little bit more of this pigment, whereas the cold water swatch seemed to really just kind of lose its ashy tone that it had. But I will say that on some spots of the cold water swatch, it did pick up pretty orange. Now, especially because it's very concentrated on the ends here, that tells me that it is a porosity thing with this swatch. So because this is a treated swatch, so there could be a porosity issue that is causing it to pick up in these specific areas. Now moving on to the swatches that I have made with a client's hair. Now at the top of all of these swatches, they have a little bit more of a lighter color, and I think that's really just because the color not saturating fully at the top, because it is present even on this swatch here. But I will say that the hot water swatch, it seems a bit more. Seems to come down more, and we have lost a lot more of this pigment here. And I will put a clip on the screen of these swatches before we washed them, just so you can see. But I will say I do think that the hot water swatch did fade a little bit more than this cold water swatch did. And if we put this control swatch in the middle, it's pretty safe to say that the swatch on the right appears a little bit lighter than the other two swatches. Now let's move on to the blonde custom made swatches. Now, unfortunately, I did not have a third swatch as the control swatch, but in these examples, the hot water swatch definitely seems to have taken a little bit more of a pinkish coppery hue, whereas the cold water seemed to just kind of stay a yellow blonde, which is what it was to begin with. There wasn't any tone on these prior like there was on these. I will say though, it doesn't look terrible. If anything, it looks a little bit intentional. So if you are okay with your blonde picking up some of the tone that you have in the rest of your hair, this could be a good way to kind of marry the two colors together. But I will let you guys be the judge here. So what do you guys think? Do you think it's worth washing your hair in cooler water to avoid it fading or bleeding into your blonde highlights? Or do you think that it didn't make that big of a difference to sacrifice your nice warm showers? Let me know in the comments, and make sure you subscribe if you want to make every day a good hair day.